I want to talk about some of the comments you've made about no-go areas in a couple of moments. But first up, let's talk about Lee Anderson. He's the one who's dominating the news. He says he's not going to say sorry for what he said about, well, not just Sadiq Khan, but also Keir Starmer. Do you think that what he said was Islamophobic? Do you think what he said was racist? Do you think what he said was true?
Look, it's interesting because the words that you're going to talk about that I said actually was in an interview when I was calling him out for his words. Let me just take what I think he said in turn. He said the fact that he acknowledged that the UK wasn't in inverted commas in the hands of Islamists. That's absolutely correct. He then went to say that London is being controlled by Islamists. That's not correct. There are people that agitated protests. There are people, around certain areas that cause wider prejudice, that stoke that, but that's not the same as London being in control. But then when he starts to talk about Sadiq Khan handing over control of London to his mates, I think that's when it really starts to cross that line, because there are many things you can say about Sadiq Khan, but being mates and in the control of Islamists just isn't one of them. So
well, lots of people pointed out, and indeed the Conservative Party ran an entire campaign against him in 2016 when he ran for London Mayor the first time, basically saying that he was, an extremist. I didn't like that campaign. I called it out on air here when we were on Talk Radio as a racist campaign. I thought he was a lawyer who represented a lot of people who we might not like, but that's your job as a lawyer. However, I think it's wrong to claim, as Lee Anderson did, and he said he used clumsy language, that Sadiq Khan is controlled by Islamists. But he also said the same words about Keir Starmer. No one seems to have noticed that. We played the full video yesterday because most people were completely unaware he'd also said it about Keir Starmer. Seems to me the reason why people are saying Islamophobic and racist is because it was about a Muslim man, a man of Asian appearance, as opposed to a white man in Keir Starmer. Is that why it's been called Islamophobic, or are we just not allowed to criticise people because of when they happen to have a certain ethnicity now?
Well, look, forgive me for the bell. That's Parliament just about to sit. I'm in my parliamentary office, but look, I didn't actually hear him say that about Keir Starmer.
No, it's the end of the sentence. When he says, he said, I believe that the Islamists control Sadiq Khan, control London, and control Keir Starmer.
Well, look,
but isn't that interesting? You even as an MP, you didn't know that because the media have cut that bit off the end.
Well, yeah, which is interesting. So I tried to catch up as much as I could of the interview. I didn't hear it live. Yeah. But look, in terms of you talked about 2016, that campaign. Look how that went. I mean, the point is that Sadiq Khan is also very good at actually, pushing back at that kind of language. He's a skilled politician, terrible mayor, but a skilled politician. So we shouldn't be playing into that. But nonetheless, the wider point that you make, I just think it's distasteful talking to a Muslim mayor. Talking about Islamists, and so he is a political Lee Anderson and all of us.
But when does Sadiq Khan? When has Sadiq Khan? Again, I don't like his language. I think it was inaccurate. But when has Sadiq Khan spoken out about all of the Jewish people in London who are scared to have their children or themselves go to central London every Saturday? When did he speak out about the mob on Tower Bridge on Saturday night, closing down the roads? When did he speak out about the anti-Semitic, message about the annihilation of Israel from the river to the sea being beamed onto Parliament? When did he speak out about any of that stuff?
Julie, you're absolutely right.
So why is it wrong for someone to call that out?
Because it wasn't the way he called it out. He was talking about the fact that Sadiq Khan is handing over London to his friends. I mean, that's this sort of stuff, and then for just to double down on that rather than actually acknowledge it. I've talked about the fact that Sadiq Khan is many things, but that's not one of them. We are, as MPs, we are political leaders. We've got to be really careful about our language, and because otherwise that stokes division, as you've.
But okay, so I don't think Sadiq Khan is mates with these people. However, I think he and Keir Starmer, like everyone else in Parliament, is terrified of these people. And the police are terrified of these people, and that's why they don't make arrests on the day when people are desecrating war memorials and chanting from the river to the sea and holding up placards which basically are glorifying Hamas as a terrorist group. They don't take action because they are scared. Now, That
Yeah.
MPs need bodyguards because they are scared. MPs are standing down. The Justice Minister, Mike Freer, is standing down because he believes he's had the threats. He basically doesn't believe he's going to be protected. MP, I mean, everyone still talks about Joe Cox, terrible, terrible killing by a far-right activist. But I'm sorry, more recently, David Amos was killed by an Islamist extremist. Far more threats have been made by Islamist extremists. But our politicians, our police are running scared. Why is that?
Well, you're absolutely right with all of those sort of things. I don't think we need to give the police all the time new layers of legislation. There's plenty of there for them to be
use the laws they've got
to work on exactly to exactly do that. What I'm saying in terms of language, and you've seen the frenzy around some of the stuff that I've said yesterday, that's actually been misinterpreted by some, taken offence by others, agreed with by others.
Well, let's go into what you said.
The whole point of that, language does matter in this.
This is, bearing in mind, you were the Minister for London. You did actually want to get selected as the Conservative candidate for the London mayoralty as well this year. You said, you talked about basically how there were no-go areas in Birmingham and in East London. You said the point I'm trying to make is if you look at parts of Tower Hamlets, for example, where there are no-go areas, parts of Birmingham Spark Hill, where there are no-go areas, mainly because of doctrine, mainly because of people abusing in many ways their religion, too, because you said it is not the doctrine of Islam to espouse what some of these people are saying. That, I think you said, is the concern that needs to be addressed. When you say a no-go area, a no-go for whom?
What I was trying to get across is that there are places, parts of this country, whether it's Muslim, black, white, whatever, that there are certain places that people do not feel comfortable going into. And some of that is perception, some of that may be a reality if it's gangs and such like. In certain parts of the area, of the country, there are small groups of people who are like the Muslim patrols of years ago, when there are a few people, trying to push their particular brand of misrepresented Islam doctrine, very small number of people, which then gives rise to a conversation about why, that just writing off a whole community on the basis of the idiot actions of maybe 10, 20 people.
Well, they're not idiot actions, they're threatening actions. I mean, I know Tower Hamlets well.
Absolutely.
I did my training as a news reporter there, worked there. And now, I mean, I certainly remember there was already some tensions there when I was there. This is many, many years ago. But I certainly know people who live in that area who say there have been, women who've been harassed for wearing, perfectly normal Western clothes, and not in a bikini, even if they were, no one's business, on the street, but by men who say, look, basically saying you're not welcome in this area if you're going to dress, basically as a Western woman would dress in normal Western clothing. Now, that isn't acceptable. But are you saying that's what you mean by a no-go area?
Well, yes, but it's a very, very small group of people who tend to do that. I know hundreds of people across Tower Hamlets, for example, who, very peaceful people, very lovely people, and you can't write off a community on the basis of some mindless and, as you say, threatening.
Isn't that what you did, though?
Behaviour by small. So you need those moderate. What I'm saying, you need the moderate voices in this debate, and the frenzy that I've had over the last 24 hours makes me, frankly, just want to step out of the discussion entirely, which then leaves that polarised debate to be had.
Okay, but isn't that but Paul, isn't that the exact issue that we've got? That anyone who ventures into this and doesn't just say all of the sort of BBC, Guardian platitudes, immediately will be attacked and just goes, this isn't worth it. You're called a bigot, called an Islamophobe, called a liar, called a whatever, asked to apologise. It's not. People feel it's not worth their while and they walk away from it. And then that space is vacated and the only people left talking about it are people on the far right. And no, you and I are not on the far right, far from it, but we're called that if we rage these things. This is the issue. We have had a situation for years, whether it was immigration, whether it's illegal immigration, whether it's Islamist extremists in our midst, people who actually say we need to talk about this. These things are an issue. They're affecting people. Let's talk about the facts. We're big on facts on this show. They are castigated as bigots, Islamophobes, racists, you name it. Those names are thrown out. And then people are afraid to debate this. But it's politicians that have allowed that to happen. It is this moderate debate that needs to be had that hasn't happened for so long. And I cannot tell you quite how furious I am with the last 24 hours, partly because I've used
phrases like no-go areas, which actually do trigger some people because of a wider conspiratorial context. But has allowed that to be misconstrued, but it's partly because of the layering of some political confected outrage that's added on to people's understandable concern. And that, as you say, just means that moderate voices are not going to be heard in this debate unless we actually grab, as politicians, a little bit of reality and make sure that we can that we can have this conversation.
And
so
also, by the way, MPs
like London.
MPs might be assigned bodyguards, but the general public is not.